All right. Toledo game started out really good, ended really bad. And got family weekend coming up this weekend, which is always fun. We have a big crowd. Be a lot of fun. Got Morehead State coming in. Team that can score a lot of points, plays very fast, offensively, defensively runs to the football very well. And we've kind of come out of one segment of our season and going into another segment of our season. So we kind of start our FCS season now. So everything that has happened 3 weeks prior, whether good or bad, really doesn't matter. To this point, we kind of start anew and looking forward to it.
What was your biggest takeaway from Saturday's effort, particularly after outgaining Toledo in the first half by a yard?
I'd be truthfully, my biggest takeaway is I talked to the staff about this too. I'm be honest with you, I'm super proud of where we're at. 10 years ago when I was an assistant here, I remember having a staff meeting where we had to talk about where the head coach at the time was telling us as an assistant, saying, hey, listen, if you hear anybody say anything about the program getting killed and there's no need for football and all that kind of stuff, don't listen to it and all of those things. And that was a legit conversation. That was real enough for us to have that conversation in a staff meeting about where Murray State football was, and that was just as little as 10 years ago. And now all of a sudden, 10 years later, we show up to an FBS team, not just any FBS team, but a team that is picked to win their league, their side of their league, and the expectation is to win. From players to coaches to fans that were there, the expectation is not just to play well and not to get beat bad. The expectation was to win. So from that standpoint, just listening to the way the players talk, listening to the conversations that the coaches have, listening to some of the things that the excitement from fans and things like that when they show up, and it's just completely different. The rhetoric is completely different than when I got here, and probably my overwhelming take on the bus, on a long bus ride back Sunday, was just that, how far we've come in a little bit of time in a span of 10 years. Obviously got a lot to do and a lot to correct. But aside from all of the X's and O's and the particulars and all that, that was my biggest takeaway. Was just that feeling of expectation and feeling of those players kind of being on a mission, because they're pretty brokenhearted now. They're pretty brokenhearted. Offensively, like you said, we were on track to have a 500 total yard night. Played very well the first half. Just didn't have anything to show for it. Couldn't finish drives. Obviously, I had to do some things. It seemed like it was funny. This is the first week we didn't have Gabe, so I had a freshman kicker that was going to have to kick field goals. And I made a comment to Coach Coleman. I joked with him about the first quarter. I said, man, you would pick tonight of all nights to stall out on every series around the 25, 26, 28, 30-yard line, to where it's, I don't want to run those kickers out there in the first collegiate kick they have is a 43-yarder, 44-yarder and all that. So we were going for it on fourth down a pretty good bit. Had our chances. Just could never execute, whether it was a hold, whether we did execute and it was a hold, whether we dropped a pass, whatever the case may be. But was really trying to kind of get our guys out of that situation, our kickers out of that situation, which put our defense in some bad situations at times. But really thought for the most part those guys played tremendously well. They contained that quarterback tremendously well. And about the only time that we gave up anything were just on busts. And that's a good feeling when you can watch the tape and say, hey, we gave up this pass play because our eyes aren't right. We gave up this because, this guy, we got out there late to cover him, whatever the case may be. You can fix those things. effort, their part of it, the effort part of it was there. The physicality part of it was there. Just sometimes the execution was not.
With family weekend this weekend, how is that different from a normal home game for you guys?
Not at all. We go through our same preparations, our same deal. Tonight will be the same practice. Tomorrow will be the same practice. Thursday will be the same practice. Friday. It doesn't affect us.
I meant more so from like having the fans in the stands perspective.
Oh, well, that's always huge. Shoot, man. I mean, that's, anytime you run out there and you got people yelling at you, it's a completely different feel, and we feed off that. And I said that week one, with the student section being down there right behind us. Thought that was just a completely different environment. And those guys feed off of it, when the crowd is into it, and especially when the crowd is into like the situations of the game, when it's third down and those guys are yelling and they're standing up and it's fourth down and crowd's going nuts, and they can kind of sense this is a big drive, this is a big stop, here's a goal line stop, and those things, it's tremendously helpful for our guys because, like I said, they just makes you feel good. It makes those guys feel good. It's a heck of a lot of work that you put into a little bit of time, on your Saturdays, and to have that little bit of time shared with a lot of people that are after the same goal as you, and they're yelling and they're cheering you on, sure does make that work kind of justifiable, if you will.
About James Sappington, he got to play, I know, a little bit,
Yep.
maybe he wasn't targeted a lot. Just how did he do out there in the first version?
He's just got to get back in the mix. He's got to. We've got him on a pitch count, and he's just got to get back in the mix. He's got to get some. Biggest thing is he's just got to get some collisions. He's got to get some contact. That was the one thing in his mind that he was a little worried about, was just the collision aspect of it, getting hurt a little bit, and having those bruises. So he'll continue to work in there, and we'll continue to kind of, gain on his reps and pitch count and those type things. But he said he felt good. I saw him in the weight room this morning. He said he felt good. Everything else was sore on him for once. It wasn't the groin, it was everything else, so that's good.
I know Preston's not Mitchell Guadani, but you guys kind of had him running quite a bit there in that first half. When you review the tape of somebody like Guadani, who had a lot of excellent throws in the second quarter, do you lift anything from Toledo's playbook to kind of use with Preston Rice, knowing that the two of them are both kind of dual threat quarterbacks?
Nope. We'll if we see something cool, if we see that, shoot, man, everybody in this profession is a bunch of thieves, I didn't invent the power, I didn't invent the counter, I didn't invent the zone, but I dang sure use it. I watch football. I kid my wife all the time. She always gives me a hard time. That first week when we played on a Thursday, Saturday, all I did was sit around and watch football, and Ricky says, man, don't you ever get tired of this? We got things that we got to do. And I looked at her and I said, I'm working right now. She kind of rolled her eyes at me. But it's kind of the truth, as a coach, when you watch games, you don't watch it just to, eat chips and salsa and drink and all that kind of stuff. You're kind of working. You never turn it off. And whether it's the NFL, you see a cool play, it fits into your schemes and your playbook. Immediately, we were riding back on the bus and we were watching some NFL games the other day. What is today? Monday? Yesterday. And, Coleman's texting me going, hey, we could call that such and such and such and such, and then we get the same thing. So if we see something we like, then we'll lift it. But Preston is his own dude. And some of that running was not by design. Some of that running was, by instinct, I guess. But I'm gonna tell you, that dude's one of us now. That joker's a tough nut. I like the way he plays, and I've said that all along, man. I got a lot of confidence in that room collectively, and that kid especially, because he's a tough one now. He's as confident as they come. Things don't always go great for him, but he's tough enough to fight through that stuff. And so I was really, really proud of that kid.
Against Georgia, it was Eli Wolf. This past weekend, it was Rossi. Is tight end defense kind of a concern for you, or somewhere that the defense might target? I know you're not going to face those kind of tight ends coming into the FCS, but
Well, I mean, you'll face some good ones now. I mean, EKU's got some. Jacksonville State's got some. You know, I think when you're talking about a team like Georgia, the deal is you got to figure out what's going to hurt you, right? And even Toledo, the deal is you got to figure out what's going to hurt you, and you let the least of those be the one to hurt you. And Georgia, you just get spread so thin defensively. You know, you got a back there that's as good as there is, that is NFL ready to play right now. You got a quarterback back there that can shred you, and then you got all of these cats out wide that can go, you know. And a lot of times you're trying to minimize damage, right? That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to minimize damage. Well, what can hurt you the most? Is it these dudes who run 4.3 out here and are tall and long? Or is it this dude that can go across the middle and catch, 10-yard little curl route, and you got to rally and hit him? And a lot of times when you look at it, whether it's Georgia, whether it's Toledo, whether it's EKU, whether it's Jacksonville State, it's just about minimizing that damage. And obviously you try to cover it all, but at the same time you're gonna really try to focus in and make sure that the things that can kill you don't hurt you, and that the things that can hurt you don't kill you, if that makes sense. And I think that that's what they've kind of done the past 2 weeks.
Looking at Morehead State, what are some of those things that they have that can kill you or hurt you?
Their offense can score. Their offense can go now. They're conceptually they're a lot like ours. They do a lot of the same things. They're going to be an up-tempo offense, which is very hard to simulate during the work week for your defense. So we're probably going to go a lot more good on good defense versus offense this week, just so offensively we can run our plays versus the best look we're going to see. Defensively, they can run their plays and their calls versus the best offense or the best offensive look they're going to see, especially from a tempo standpoint. Their quarterback's really good. He's got a big arm, got a big, tall receiver that against EKU they really targeted a bunch on some fades and some go routes, some things like that, and he came down with a bunch of them. And they've got a kick returner that scored last year against Austin Peay, ran one back for a touchdown against Austin Peay, and already has a touchdown this year as well. So, they make no mistake about it. They've got some dudes that can go, and our guys got to be up for that challenge. They've played two really, really tough opponents. They've got to understand that these dudes are going to be good too. The film may not look the same because they may not have a big stadium behind them, and you may not have all of the fluff, right? The crap, right? 40 cheerleaders over here and a big band in the back and ESPN cameras going, and all of that kind. You ain't got all that crap on film. But when you're looking at the dudes that are playing in between the lines, it's a dang good football team we're about to face. So we've got to be ready for that. We've got to prepare well for that.
how much do you spend this week on the frustration of being shut out? Because I knew on Saturday you were a little bit peeved about that. How much do you focus on that as an offensive guru, and how much do you take that personally going throughout the rest of the season?
Anytime you're not successful, you take it personally. Anytime you don't compete at a high level, you take it personally. Anytime that you're not the best version of yourself, you take it personally. And the offensive staff has taken it really personally. I think they're going to get the offensive guys to take it very, very personally. And that's kind of the conversation we're having with those guys is, this is a thing. This is 156 straight games, the ninth best OVC record or whatever as far as scoring every game, which, to be perfectly honest with you, none of that means crap. You can still get beat and score, you know what I mean? But it is something that when you're talking about being the best you that you can be, it's a log that you can throw on that fire to make sure that those guys understand, like we were talking about earlier, the preparation they have to have in getting to where they want to be, And the great thing about that has nothing to do with Morehead. It has nothing to do with anybody we're playing. It has everything to do with how they're going to attack this week, how they're going to go about their business at practice, and the reps that they get, making sure that doesn't happen again.
Any new injury news this week, good or bad?
Armani Hayes, we're still waiting on him. Little shoulder, deal. But other than that, kind of a, same thing, kind of waiting for a couple of guys to come back on board. The wide receiver spot's probably taking the biggest hits. I think we're up to 7 right now at one position. Nothing that you wouldn't expect coming off of the 2 weeks that we've had.